Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of 2 college athletes. He has a wealth of experience to share. Here's Recruit Me CEO, Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 443 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. Today's episode is a longer episode and is part 1 of a 2-part interview with Jay Spoonhour. Jay currently is the Assistant Athletics Development Director at Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri. Missouri State is an NCAA Division I university and is considered a mid-major in sports. It currently competes in sports in the Missouri Valley Conference. But next year, the 2025-2026 season, they will be moving to Conference USA, and football is moving from the FCS level to the FBS level. Jay's job deals with the athletic department's new adventure in the NIL, or Name, Image, and Likeness, and he helps to raise money and guide the university through the nuances of NIL. Missouri State has 19 varsity-level teams that he works with. Jay, also known as Coach Spoonhour, played basketball and graduated from Pittsburg State, a Division II level school in Pittsburg, Kansas. His career took off after he graduated as a graduate assistant at Pitt State in 1994. He moved to an assistant coach for his dad, Coach Charlie Spoonhour, from 1996 to 1999 at St. Louis University. He moved to Valparaiso in 2000. Then was the head coach at Wabash Valley Junior College in the 2000-2001 season. Jay went to work again for his dad at UNLV from 2001 to 2004. He was an assistant at UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, during the 2006, 2007, and 2008 seasons, after Charlie retired. From 2009 to 2012, he was the basketball head coach and athletic director at Moberly Junior College, and then moved to the head coach job at the University of Eastern Illinois University for 9 years from 2012 to 2021. He got back into coaching at Missouri State University as an assistant in the 2023-2024 season, and now is in an administration role there. So he has been at many levels and many different types of colleges for 30 years. You'll find out that Jay was a high schooler when I attended Missouri State University, then Southwest Missouri State, and I was a manager for the men's basketball team under the direction of, yes, his dad, Coach Charlie Spoonhour. I was introduced to Jay as Jay Bird, and he knew me as Manage. I had a great 4-year experience with Coach Charlie, and I got to watch Jay grow up through high school, college, and I've got to see his family and his coaching career over the years. Today we will cover Jay's current job description and what he does for the athletes and the university. And we will see the ins and outs of NIL at Missouri State and NIL in general at all levels. Next week we will hit on more information about college sports. So today let's get into this informative interview with Jay Spoonhour. Well, Jay, welcome to the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. Thanks for your time.
I'm happy to do it.
And I actually kind of know you as Jay Bird. I think a guy named Coach Charlie Spoonhour introduced me to you when you were in high school, and there was Jay Bird and your little brother Bear.
Well, he didn't call anybody by their real name. So you
That's right, because I was Manage. I didn't. I
don't
know that he knew my
Manage,
name,
which was not very creative. Brian Robertson was B. Nobody has their real name.
If he was calling you by that and not calling you by a hickory nut or a rockhead, you were okay.
Yeah, you were in trouble if he used your Christian name.
Well, tell us what your current job is there at Missouri State, and then tell us what you actually do.
Well, I can read what it title. Basically, you're an assistant AD for development and fundraising. Basically, is what it is. There's college athletics. I'm going to tell you, depending on when we air this, stuff changes so much, Brent. It's like who knows where it's all going. But one thing is for sure, the funds are going to be needed, because you have a whole new, basically, stream that you have to satisfy now with NIL. So I started here. There was no NIL set up, no NIL department. And really, it's because most mid-majors didn't know where any of this was going. We still don't really know, but we know that the NIL is not going away now. So for the last couple of years, teams have been doing NIL kind of out of, and I'm talking about mid-majors. The big boys got into it pretty early, but not knowing where everything was going to go, universities were reluctant because you didn't want to set up something and start employing a bunch of people and then have it all go away. And it just created a hassle. So a lot of mid-majors are like in the spot where Missouri State is, where we're just starting our NIL group. And basically it's another area of the foundation that has to raise money.
And so you get to go out and talk to alumni, donors, businesses. Is that kind of where the money comes from? And then where does that money go? And like, how does it get distributed throughout the athletic department?
The money that I raise cannot come to university because it hasn't been adjudicated yet. It's going to. We're all pretty sure that by July this year, the rules are going to be passed. It's all going to be taken care of to where the schools can pay the athletes. Okay. And it'll be at every different level. Everybody always talks about the big guys, the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to have to come down to 22 million. And the 22 million is the number that the NCAA basically based the average revenue of each Power Five institution that they could handle in terms of what they could pay. So every Power Five has the ability, as a cap, to pay $22 million out of their university foundation, and then they will distribute the money. Up until then, like right now, the way it's all going, it's all through these things that are called collectives, which are private donations by individual people, by corporations, and they are not affiliated with the school in any way. And so I don't have much to do with the collective other than I try to help them raise money if I can.
Who decides how that's distributed?
The coaches will, and this is the other thing, is that for a year, no one really knows because there's really not any rule in place on this, Brent. Like the coaches, for the most part, don't much to do with it. The people that run collectives at different schools, like Missouri State has 3 different collectives. The football, and they did it out of necessity because they started realizing that, hey, we're going to lose players to these other schools. We need to try to raise some money. So there's a group called the Football Players Association that was started by Dennis Heim, and it's run by Trevor Christ and Kirk Elmquist and a bunch of other really forward-thinking, smart business people that are big Bear football fans. They have their own setup, and they raise money and have golf tournaments in order to try to hang on to ball players. I don't think anybody here is at the point where we're using NIL money to attract players. It's really to try to hang on to them. Men's basketball started a few years ago with the guys over at Forvis, and then a group of guys in town. I think Jim Ferguson's on the board, and Tad Pinniger and other people who are big Bear fans. They started the Bears Hoops Alliance. I think it's 3 or 4 years old. And again, it came out of, hey, we need to do this if we're going to hang on to players because other teams are offering them money. And so all the money raised is by private donations. And then here just recently, this summer, the baseball team had to do it because a whole bunch of teams started coming after the outfielders. And I mean, like you get a guy that goes out and hits home runs and everybody starts calling on him and they say, hey, here's what we can give you. And so you start scrambling around saying, what can we raise here to try to hang on to these guys? And baseball team did very well. They were able to hang on to their guys that they wanted. And football just recently, Jacob Clark said he's going to stay. That's sort of where we are on it.
This gets into a lot of levels like you were talking about. So like the SEC, I heard that all their quarterbacks that started for SEC teams made more money this year than Brock Purdy did for the San Francisco 49ers. So you've got the Power 4, Power 5. We're talking mainly mid-major with Missouri State. So is baseball, basketball, and football kind of the main ones that have some collective money going, or some of the other sports like track and tennis and soccer, or are they kind of having to get involved too?
The only collectives that Missouri State has, anyone can do it, but the only ones that have it currently at Missouri State are the 3 that I mentioned. It's
right.
Football, but now women's basketball could, and they're right on the edge of, they lost a couple of girls last year to the portal as well. They're right on the borderline of, do we want to set one up? The deal is that everyone is a bit in a holding pattern because we really want to see how the collective bargaining, how that all looks, or not collective bargaining, the revenue sharing. So what we anticipate is going to happen in July is every team has the choice. Every university has the choice of whether you're going to either opt in or opt out. If you opt out of the whole revenue sharing thing, you're basically doing business as usual. You have your collective if you want to use it, but the university does not pay the kids. It's just like the rules have always been. If you opt in, which at this point seems like what Missouri State is going to do, you are now saying we are on board with paying athletes, and how that ends up looking, like where the money comes from. Some of it's appropriated from it comes out of your budget. So all the stuff that universities used to spend money on, a portion of that is now going to go to the athletes. And so I don't know what the number will be, but here's the thing I will tell you. Like the average, I told you 22 million is the cap for Power Fives. I think the average Conference USA team is around 3.5 million is a number that I saw. You can't totally take these numbers to the bank because nobody knows. And that's 3.5 million for the entire athletic department. The majority of that money would go to football, and then men's basketball would get another appropriated amount. And then where it goes from there, I'm not sure, and I don't want to say and be wrong, but it's also new, Brent. In a way, it's exciting, but we're up in the air.
So is our families that listen, our student athletes that listen, that think they're going to get major NIL money, they might possibly do that at the Power 4, Power 5 type of conferences. The upper levels of those, my son Parker went to Northwestern in the Big Ten. I doubt if they're getting into NIL money big time in baseball in particular, but they probably are in football and basketball. But at the Conference USA Missouri Valley level that the Missouri State Bears are in, some people in the conference are going to jump in, and some people aren't, and some people are going to try to get recruits to come in with some money, or like you said, they're going to just have to use that money to try to retain players and get players to transfer in at their junior or senior years. Is that about right?
I think so. I don't know exactly where it goes, and I'm speaking generally now, not Missouri State specific, but just in general. If you're not producing revenue, who knows what's going to happen to you? I'm talking about your overall sport. Like I've seen Big Ten teams and a Big 12, an AD from a Big 12 team basically say that. Like, look, if you are not in a position where your sport is generating money, which is the case with most sports. Most sports don't make money. We are not going to be able to fund you like we have. And to me, what that means is we've all seen sports get cut. I mean, wrestling has been getting cut all over the country.
Yeah.
There used to be men's gymnastics. There used to be Missouri State doesn't have a men's track and field team. They don't have a cross country team. Everything is based on funds. And so I think you're going to see more of that because you started the question by saying, can you anticipate earning a lot of money? For sure, if you are a high-level person, the amount of money that a guy like Jackson Cantwell is going to demand or command, I shouldn't say demand.
Right.
That makes it sound like he's doing it. But the ability is now there. It never was there before. In a way, it's a really terrific thing for parents. It's a terrific thing because it doesn't have to be huge money. Some of these guys like you said, some of them are making generational money in college, which is crazy. But I'm a parent of 3. I would love my kid to make generational money. It won't be happening. But you know what? If he can get his books paid for, terrific. And the fact is that you can now do that as a student athlete. It gives you the ability to get paid if you'll hustle a little bit. I'm going to tell you that here with the Bears, there's 2 people that really are doing well in NIL, and it's Cayman Beckmeyer and Lacey Stokes.
Right. 2
women's basketball players. They're recognizable. They're nice people. They're good players. And like Cayman Beckmeyer is sort of an influencer on TikTok anyway. She's using her thing with the Bears. She's helping out businesses in her hometown, and she's making a little bit of money. She's not making generational money, but she's making pretty good money for a college kid.
Right.
It all does is it affords kids the opportunity to do it.
So the way I understand it, there's like 3 levels or 3 different ways of NIL. One is the money that we're talking about that they may get paid, that you see on ESPN, when they talk about Arch Manning is getting X millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's coming from that would be coming from a collective.
That's coming from a collective.
That money is cash coming from a collective. The kid, they have to do something for it. It may it may not match up with the millions of dollars a guy gets, but you show up, you do autograph signing, you take pictures, you do whatever. And yes, that's how it works.
I mean, if I wanted to, I could go and give $1,000 to a player just because I wanted to. Is that correct?
Yeah, you would do it through the collective.
You still do it through the collective.
That's the easiest way to do stuff. But then you could also do it like if you own a business, like I mentioned with Cayman is doing her latest thing was she's on a billboard out in Republic for Pinnager Chevrolet, and you drive into Republic and there's Cayman, and she's got she's out there with her Bear uniform on, and that's sort of how it's a local business who has advertising dollars. If they want to help out a player that they really like, that's the way they can do it. It gets as close as you can get to a reciprocal agreement where you get somebody who is who's a well-liked athlete that people like and they want to represent your company. I think it's good on both ends there.
And then another way, like you said, is social media, or now they can pretty much most athletes can give lessons where 5 or 6, 7 years ago that was not legal. So you can, like, if you're a baseball pitcher, you can give pitching lessons now.
You got it. So what we're going to do with the social media stuff, I mentioned Cayman being an influencer. She's done some stuff with Rapid Roberts, does it on TikTok. She goes and films some stuff. It's the advertising they're already doing. I think the Rapid Roberts guys have loved it. It's been great for both ends. I just started this last week trying to set up some clinics and camps for our athletes who are local, and even not necessarily local, like a kid from Jeff City could maybe go back after the basketball season,
Right.
have a 1 day shooting camp, and his high school helps him out, maybe get some kids to come over. The kid, you take pictures, you sign autographs, and you work with kids individually for a day. And it's a way that you can make a little bit. The same thing with like baseball. Shoot, what you paid for instruction, for pitching
Right.
lessons. And thing about it, if you have a kid who's an athlete, you and I both know quite a bit about the different sports we cover, but at some point, my kid got past me in terms of pitching. I couldn't help him anymore. And if I wanted him to be good, he's 13 or 14 years old, I'm like, shoot, if he's really going to be good, I need to find somebody.
Right.
Well, those things are expensive. And to find somebody that really knows what they're talking about, well, all of these, like all the kids on the Bears team, you talk about a guy that knows how to hit. Like you talk to Zach Stewart from Lebanon, he knows how to hit. The only thing is he doesn't have a ton of time. He can't hang out and do individual workouts, but he could come do a 1 day clinic, tell your kid, hey, this is what you need to work on. You're getting it from a guy that knows how to hit.
And that's good for the university too, because it kind of gets their name out there. And you got Zach Stewart. Sutton played with him in summer ball and against him, and he's a big name around here, and that draws attention to him and Missouri State both.
And I think it's real world stuff about starting your life and building your own brand as what you're going to be. Like if you're going to open an insurance agency, the first thing you do is you start marketing and you start trying to drum up business. Same thing if you're going to be in real estate, whatever it is you're going to do. If you're starting your own business, that's what it is. Well, for all of these kids, not all of them, but a lot of these Division I athletes, if you're Division I, it is your business. You spend so much time doing it. Even like my daughter is a runner, even she could do stuff, could start a running club and get high school kids or junior high kids, maybe talk to them about how to stretch, how to cool down, how to do all that stuff. That is the stuff that these kids already know how to do. Again, we're not talking about huge money. This isn't the stuff that's kind of distasteful. When you start talking about guys making money that they're making, it gets a hair distasteful to me. I'm talking millions. And I know that it bothers other people. But that's not what we're talking about for most people, especially like people that are at Missouri State or at Drury or in any college that's mid to major to low major. Just want them to have the opportunity that maybe they can not go into total debt going to school.
Well, and part of the message I think I wanted to come out of this is NIL money is out there at any level, but I don't really talk to a lot of people that are Arch Manning type of person, and so. If you're looking for millions of dollars, it's out there, but you got to be pretty special to go get it. Otherwise, get to a place that you want to play and can play, and then work the system through that, and you can come up with some NIL money.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, they wouldn't let kids work, right? You remember that? Like you couldn't have a job, and so that was when they were into the NCAA just cracks me up on all this stuff, all their high ideals from years ago about amateurism and you shouldn't be sullied by money and all those things. Meanwhile, they're making billions of dollars. It's not feasible really for kids to be able to work when you're talking about schoolwork during a year and then you're in your season, you can't get a job. But this allows them to make money on their name or their image, and that doesn't require a ton of time. That's sort of what I'm talking about with the camps and clinics. My goal is to not make Lacey Stokes have to work a second on setting it up. I'll make all the phone calls. I'll do all the stuff about hopefully promoting it. And then she just shows up that day and does what she's good at and then can make a little bit of money.
Right. The whole Blue Chip money or movie years ago with Shaq and Nick Nolte, that's a training video now, isn't
documentary now, isn't it? Those were the things that when we watched it at the time, we're like, yeah, this is a little much.
Yeah, other than point shaving, everything else is legal now.
So it isn't by choice. The NCAA didn't choose this. They got backed into it. When you get down to it, totally different than what any of us grew up with. Here's where I am with it. Because I was against it for a long time too.
Right.
It doesn't benefit the game, I don't think. But when you get right down to it, I don't want some bureaucracy telling me that I can't earn money. And the NCAA actually did that to me at one
Yes.
point. You remember when they had the restricted earnings coach?
Yes.
I was in that deal. I was in the class action lawsuit because they were trying to save money wherever they could to keep it for themselves. And when we say the NCAA, we're really talking about the NCAA is the institutions.
Right.
But they were like, man, we're paying these coaches so much money. We need to have, it was probably well thought out. Let's have a restricted earnings. Let's have an entry level position where you can only make $12,000. Well, that's what it was. But then when somebody said, hey, wait a minute, this is America. You can't tell me how much I can earn. And the NCAA said, well, we are. And then we got lawyers and we won because it's not American to tell somebody they can only earn so much money.
And it keeps people from getting in that business, that profession.
Now look at it. Now if you look at a college basketball game, look how many people are wearing, well, we used to say the suits.
Yeah.
They're not wearing suits anymore. They're all wearing pullovers or whatever, but there's a lot. At one time, there was a head coach, there were two assistants, and then there was a third assistant. And then maybe if you were lucky, you had a GA.
And a manager that get to sit by the coach and keep stats. So
yeah, that looked like a coach, and every now and then get into the games. That's how it used to be, and it was all really done to save money because there wasn't the money in the business that there is now.
Right.
The money's all gone up. Money's really a great thing, but there's not many things that it improves when it gets to a high level I don't think it's going to improve this, but we'll see where it goes.
How do you think NIL has affected recruiting for high schoolers? And then has it kind of affected it at the upper sports, like the men's basketball, women's basketball, and football, where they get full ride scholarships compared to a baseball or a soccer or a track and field that usually got partials? How do you think NIL's kind of affected that?
Well, the most NIL money is probably sitting with football programs, and I'm talking the Power Five type. So that's where most of the money is. The people that would benefit from it the most are for sure baseball. Now, this stuff's changing too, but up until even still now, baseball programs have 11.7 scholarship for, I think that's right.
Yes.
11.7 for a roster of 40 or so. So you just do the math on that. On average, everybody's getting a quarter of a scholarship. That's not how it works, but you'll have one guy on a Tennessee baseball team. There's a whole bunch of guys on that team that they're figuring out how to pay for school. They're, prior to NIL, they were getting grants or whatever they could because they can only have, and then you may have one guy on a team who's got a full ride. Tennessee was really smart and was early on. They were really good about the NIL stuff. It can really impact your baseball team. I think at the Power Fives, the money is probably used to recruit, to attract people. I can't even tell you I know exactly how that's done. I don't know how legally you do that because at Missouri State, we've used it as retention. We haven't used it to attract people. But kids are now on recruiting visits. I know this is happening at a higher level. Kids walk in and the first thing they do is they have an NIL meeting at the behest of the coaches. They say, hey, we're going to introduce you to the people at the collective. They're going to go over what we have to offer, and then we'll continue on with showing you the visit. And they get that out of the way right off the bat. And in a way, it's like, hey, here's what we can do. So I know that happens on a recruiting visit now. Again, I don't think it happens much at even the mid-major level. I don't think it's happening much.
Right.
And I don't think it's happening in any sport other than football and basketball, although I would guess baseball is now getting to that point.
So like let's say a successful Division II that has good basketball or baseball or football programs that they have some money. Can Division II and non-Division I basically get NIL money if they have it?
To my knowledge, they can.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that people who are Division II players are saying they are getting it. And I know that there are Division II coaches that are saying that they're giving it. I just wonder if it is in a way kind of lumped into there's lots of different funds now, that aren't necessarily NIL. There's a fund called the Alston Fund that everyone has ability to fund if they want to. It's kind of tied to academics and there's a cap on it. It stems from another lawsuit. No, and then for a couple of years ago, it was all about cost of attendance, teams being able to use cost of attendance. I think Division II can. I don't know for certain, but I'm almost positive they can. And they have boosters just like anybody else. And if they have boosters that are interested enough and they want to hang on to a guy, sure they could.
So you mentioned the ever-changing college athletic arena. Not only do we have NIL that has changed, we have the transfer portal and then new roster and scholarship rules and limits, and then possibly JUCO years not taking away from your 4-year eligibility. How are we going to handle all this?
Those are all huge topics too. It's just an amazing thing about all of the things that are changing. And I know that we're talking to parents of kids that are, getting close. I've been in this my whole life, and I can't give you a prediction on what it's going to do.
That wraps up part 1 of this interview with Jay Spoonhour. We covered many aspects of NIL, name, image, and likeness, in college sports, with various examples of how NIL is happening today. We also talked about how things are not settled, and that there will be many more changes and adjustments. Join me next week for part 2 of this interview with Jay Spoonhour. Episode 444 will have information about the transfer portal, levels of play, junior college eligibility, and when Jay, as a college coach, started recruiting players for his basketball teams. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.